ഓഷ്യൻ ഗേറ്റ് ടൈറ്റൻ, തിരയലും രക്ഷാപ്രവർത്തനവും 18 ജൂൺ 22. യുണൈറ്റഡ് സ്റ്റേറ്റ്സ് കോസ്റ്റ് ഗാർഡ്, യുണൈറ്റഡ് സ്റ്റേറ്റ്സ് നേവി, കനേഡിയൻ കോസ്റ്റ് ഗാർഡ് എന്നിവർ തിരച്ചിലിനും രക്ഷാപ്രവർത്തനത്തിനും നേതൃത്വം നൽകി. റോയൽ കനേഡിയൻ എയർഫോഴ്സ്, യുണൈറ്റഡ് സ്റ്റേറ്റ്സ് എയർ നാഷണൽ ഗാർഡ്, റോയൽ കനേഡിയൻ നേവി കപ്പൽ, നിരവധി വാണിജ്യ ഗവേഷണ കപ്പലുകൾ, വിദൂരമായി പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന അണ്ടർവാട്ടർ വെഹിക്കിൾ (RFV) എന്നിവയിൽ നിന്നുള്ള വിമാനങ്ങളും തിരച്ചിലിൽ സഹായിച്ചു. തിരച്ചിലിൽ ഉപരിതല തിരയലും വെള്ളത്തിനടിയിലുള്ള സോണാർ തിരയലും ഉൾപ്പെടുന്നു. 20-23 ജൂൺ 19 21 അടി ഉയരമുള്ള അന്തർവാഹിനിക്കായുള്ള തിരച്ചിലിനെക്കുറിച്ച് മസാച്യുസെറ്റ്സിലെ ബോസ്റ്റണിൽ ഫസ്റ്റ് കോസ്റ്റ് ഗാർഡ് ഡിസ്ട്രിക്റ്റിന്റെ കമാൻഡറായ റിയർ അഡ്മിൻ ജോൺ മൌഗർ ഒരു പത്രസമ്മേളനം നടത്തുന്നു. ഞായറാഴ്ച രാവിലെ കേപ്പ് കോഡിന് ഏകദേശം 900 മൈൽ കിഴക്ക് ഒരു ഡൈവിനിടെ കനേഡിയൻ ഗവേഷണ കപ്പലായ പോളാർ പ്രിൻസിന് അവരുടെ സബ്മെർസിബിളുമായുള്ള ബന്ധം നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു. പെറ്റി ഓഫീസർ 3ാം ക്ലാസ് ബ്രയാന കാർട്ടറുടെ യുഎസ് കോസ്റ്റ് ഗാർഡ് വീഡിയോ.
Yesterday afternoon, we were notified by the operator of the submersible vessel that it was overdue, and it had 5 persons on board the submersible. So we're working very closely at this point to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to locate the submersible and rescue those on board. Our thoughts are with the crew members and the families of those on board the submersible at this time, and we are doing everything that we can do to make sure that we can locate and rescue those on board. So after receiving the call, we reached out to the vessel Polar Prince and began a surface search looking for the submersible. At the same time, we launched a C-130 aircraft to conduct an aerial search, both visual and radar, of the scene. We've subsequently coordinated with the Canadian Coast Guard and Canadian Armed Forces to deploy additional assets to the scene. The Canadians have had a C-130 aircraft searching as well, in addition to also having a P-8 submarine search aircraft deploy as well, and put sonar buoys in the water in attempt to listen. The location of the search is approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod in a water depth of roughly 13,000 feet. It is a remote area and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area. But we are deploying all available assets to make sure that we can locate the craft and rescue the people on board. Going into this evening, we will continue to fly aircraft and move additional vessels into the area. In this remote part of our search and rescue responsibility, oftentimes we rely on commercial operators to be the first vessels on scene, and so we've been in touch with additional commercial vessels that are operating in the area, as well as initiating the movement of additional Canadian Coast Guard assets and U.S. Coast Guard surface asset into the area over the course of the next couple of days. Adding to the complexity of this case is the fact that this was a submersible vessel, and so we need to make sure that we're looking both on the surface for the vessel if it had surfaced back to the water, but had somehow lost communications with the vessel, and that's what the aircraft and the surface search vessel is allowing us to do right now. But we're also having to search in the water column, and we're doing that right now with the use of sonar buoys and sonar on the ship that's out there to listen for any sounds that we can detect in the water column. Over the course of the next couple days, we anticipate adding additional capability to conduct additional search in the water as those commercial assets arrive on scene. Again, our thoughts are with the families and the crew members on board this submersible, and we're working very closely with all U.S. And international partners to provide any capability that we can provide to search for the overdue vessel and rescue the crew members on board. At this point, we'll take questions.
There were reports that the submarine may have been trapped in the wreckage of the Titanic. Is this even possible? And if that were the case, how much oxygen would these people on board have?
So in terms of locating the overdue submersible, we have to make sure that we're looking on both the surface using aerial and surface vessels, but then expanding into underwater search as well. Right now our capability is limited to sonar buoys and listening for sounds, but we're working very hard to increase the capability. We understand from the operator of the vessel that the vessel was designed with a 96-hour sustainment capability if there was an emergency on board. And so we're using that time, making the best use of every moment of that time to locate the vessel.
Sir, can you talk about who was the Hamish Harding, a British explorer, and confirm that he's on board from family?
At this point, I'm not in a position to confirm the identity of anybody on board the vessel. Out of respect for the families, we're going through the notification process, and more updates will be forthcoming.
Jumping something here, but it seems like if that vessel is sitting on the bottom, the 96-hour window reaches, this is a race to get some sort of rescue vehicle down to it. Am I correct about that?
That's absolutely part of the overall planning for this search case. Right now we're focused on locating the vessel, but at the same time, if we find this vessel in the water, then we will have to effect some sort of rescue or coordinating, reaching out to different partners within the U.S. Navy, within the Canadian Armed Forces, and within private industry to understand what underwater rescue capability might be available.
Are there any vessels on the way there that could do that, if they could get down there?
So at this moment, we're focused on the search and understanding the capabilities of the vessels that are deploying to the scene.
And what is your sonar measure as deep as 13,000 feet?
So the sonar capabilities within the sonar buoys and within the hull of the commercial vessel that is out there operating on site, those aren't Coast Guard sonars, they are capable of listening to a depth of 13,000 feet, as I understand it. So in terms of the square mileage of the search, I don't have that number right at this moment, but it includes both a surface area that we're looking at and a subsurface area. And so we'll get you the exact number for the square mileage of the search. In terms of the hours, we understood that was 96 hours of rescue or emergency capability from the operator, and so we anticipate that there's somewhere between 70 to the full 96 hours available at this point.
Do you believe that the site would be in a location near the Titanic? And so what are some of the challenges with sonar and the debris field that the Titanic had?
So it's certainly the purpose of the submarine was to, as I understand, the purpose of the submersible was to provide opportunity to visit the wreck site and explore the wreck site. So that's a possibility. Again, right now our focus is getting on as much capability into the area as we can and understanding that full capability of those assets that are being deployed. Our aerial assets that are being deployed have the capability to do both visual and radar searches, and the Canadians' asset had the ability to drop sonar buoys and listen, and so we're using all that information to improve our search capability. So we're working through that right now, but what we're really focused on at the moment is really locating the vessel, which could either be in the surface or subsurface. And so we're bringing in technical expertise to understand both the dynamics of underwater search and underwater rescue operations. So as search and rescue professionals, we work very, very hard, and our crews take this personally. Our first thoughts are with the crew members and the families of those on board. And so we want to make sure that we have done absolutely everything that we can do to locate their family members and bring them home safe. And so they're first and foremost in our thoughts every moment of this search operation.
So how common are these threats to the Titanic in general, and how dangerous are they even without emergency taking place?
I don't have any details on how often folks visit the wreck site there at Titanic, nor any specific comments on the dangers involved. Certainly, every time ships go to sea, they encounter hazards and dangers, and so having properly prepared vessels, properly prepared crew members, and making sure that you practice emergency procedures, good practical advice for anybody that goes to sea.
What's happening specifically with the families of those people right now? Are you in contact with them? Is there a safety rate for them? What's happening?
So at this point, I'm not going to discuss any information about the families and communications with the families, and so we'll provide that with future updates.
Any idea the number of personnel searching? Is it dozens, hundreds?
So the Coast Guard has two C-130 aircraft. In addition to the command team that's working here, we have two C-130 aircraft deployed. The Canadians have a C-130 aircraft and a P-8 aircraft. We also have access to, and will launch this evening, a C-130 aircraft from the New York National Guard to make sure that we have sufficient air assets up there. On the surface, we have the commercial operator that's been on site, and we're bringing additional surface search assets into play, which will also bring in some subsurface search capability. Last question, please. I understand from the operator that there was one pilot or submersible commander or operator on board, and that there were 4 mission specialists on board is the term that the operator uses for them. So five total. You have to ask the operator what that means. What we're focused on is finding those 5 people. Thank you very much for your time.
2023 ജൂൺ 21 അടി അന്തർവാഹിനിയായ ടൈറ്റനിനായി നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന തിരച്ചിലിനെക്കുറിച്ച് മസാച്യുസെറ്റ്സിലെ ബോസ്റ്റണിൽ ഫസ്റ്റ് കോസ്റ്റ് ഗാർഡ് ഡിസ്ട്രിക്ട് റെസ്പോൺസ് കോഓർഡിനേറ്റർ ക്യാപ്റ്റൻ ജാമി ഫ്രെഡറിക് ഒരു പത്രസമ്മേളനം നടത്തുന്നു. കോസ്റ്റ് ഗാർഡ് 5 പേർക്ക് വേണ്ടി തിരച്ചിൽ തുടരുന്നു. ഞായറാഴ്ച രാവിലെ കേപ്പ് കോഡിന് ഏകദേശം 900 മൈൽ കിഴക്ക് ഒരു ഡൈവിനിടെ കനേഡിയൻ ഗവേഷണ കപ്പലായ പോളാർ പ്രിൻസിന് അവരുടെ സബ്മെർസിബിളുമായുള്ള ബന്ധം നഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നു.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Captain Jamie Frederick with the 1st Coast Guard District, and I'll provide an update on our ongoing search efforts for the Titan submarine. Behind me, or beside me, I should say, you'll see several subject matter experts from the Unified Command who will introduce themselves momentarily. These individuals represent only a small fraction of the many dedicated professionals working around the clock on this complex response effort. We understand this is an extremely difficult time for the families of the missing crew members aboard the Titan, and our thoughts go out to them and the crew. Unified Command team is working tirelessly to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible in response to this complex operation. We remain in close contact with the family members and the crew to ensure they are fully aware of our current and future search efforts. Additionally, we have been in close contact with the British and French Consulates General to ensure that they are fully appraised of our efforts, and we are ensuring that their concerns are being addressed. We're incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that has been provided, including an expert submariner from the Royal Navy, here with us serving aboard as a critical member of our team. Additionally, a team of highly trained French ROV operators departed St. John's last night are en route to aid the search. Moreover, our Canadian partners have been providing critical leadership and significant response capabilities since the beginning of our efforts. Again, this is an incredibly complex search operation requiring both surface and subsurface elements, and our unified approach is critical. The location of the search, 900 miles east of Cape Cod and 400 miles southeast of St. John's, makes it exceptionally difficult to mobilize large amounts of equipment quickly. In spite of those challenges, we've been able to provide continuous air and surface search assets, as well as additional ROV capability to search below the surface. We currently have 5 surface assets searching for the Titan. We expect 10 total surface assets to search in the next 24 to 48 hours. There are 2 ROVs actively searching, and several more are en route and will arrive by tomorrow morning. We've received incredible support with aviation assets from our Coast Guard Air Station in Elizabeth City, the Air National Guard, and Canadian Armed Forces. Today there are 2 back-to-back P3 flights. One is ongoing now as I speak, totaling 14 hours of continuous on-scene coverage, and 2 C-130 flights, also one ongoing now, throughout the day and into the evening. Yesterday, the Canadian P3 detected underwater noises in the search area. As a result, ROV operations were relocated in an attempt to explore the origin of the noises. Although the ROV searches have yielded negative results, they continue. Additionally, the data from the P3 aircraft has been shared with our U.S. Navy experts for further analysis, which will be considered in future search plans. The surface search is now approximately 2 times the size of Connecticut, and the subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, exponentially expanding the size of the search area. We also have to factor in the ever-changing weather conditions, currents, and sea states that expand the search area every hour. There is an enormous complexity associated with this case due to the location being so far offshore, and the coordination between multiple agencies and nations. We greatly appreciate the outpouring of support and offers to provide additional equipment. The Unified Command continues to prioritize assets and resources in order to provide the best capability in the most timely manner. This includes weighing multiple factors to identify the most effective resources available to the response operation. With careful consideration to timeliness of equipment arriving on scene, usefulness and ability to deliver assets to the search area. Over the past 48 hours, we have, through incredible unity of effort, mobilized and implemented a tremendous amount of expertise and response capability. In addition to the ships and aircraft previously mentioned, we've dispatched 2 subject matter experts from U.S. Navy NAVSEA Subsalv, who will serve as search coordinators on scene for underwater search operations. So I've been stressing unity of effort a lot in this statement, and that's because it is absolutely critical to this complex operation. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the crew of the Titan and their loved ones. We will continue to work as hard and as quickly as possible in an effort to locate them. I will take a few questions, but before I do that, I do want, I'm going to have each of the members, the team here, just introduce themselves, and then I'll go ahead and take some questions.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Hankins. I'm the Director for Salvage Operations with the U.S. Navy Supervisor of South Hall.
Hello, I'm Carl Hartsfield from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Commander Rich Catharia. I'm an exchange officer currently serving on the staff of the Command Submarine Command.
Good afternoon. afternoon, Lieutenant Commander Christy Butler, working closely with Captain Frederick from RCC Boston, Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator. Thank you.
Captain, what more can you tell us about the noises that were heard? Can you give us any more detail? And just to follow up, from what you've gathered so far, based on those noises, should that give the families and the others who care for these people, should that give them some reason to hope?
So a couple things. One, I think when you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do. With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are, to be frank with you. The P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. And we hope that when we're able to get additional ROVs, which will be there in the morning, the intent will be to continue to search in those areas where the noises were detected, and if they're continuing to be detected, and then put additional ROVs down in the last known position where the search was originally taking place.
Captain,
The noise is still being detected, Captain.
Regular 30-minute intervals as reported.
I hadn't heard 30-minute intervals. So here's what I can tell you. I am not a trained ear for underwater aquatics. That's why we have a team of experts that are analyzing that data. That data was sent immediately to the Navy last night, and it was analyzed overnight. They're still looking at it, but I can tell you that it's inconclusive. But again, I think the important piece is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected.
Can you talk about the timeline? Can you talk about what timeline you're working on in conjunction with the teams that are there?
It's a timeline of what we're spending.
How much oxygen they have left on board?
Okay. Well, in terms of, so we talked about the oxygen number. I think you're all tracking the oxygen number. I think there's an important point with that, though. The oxygen, that's just one piece of data, right? There are a lot of pieces of data that we need to consider, and we're continuously looking at that, and we'll continuously do that throughout the search. But that's not the only thing that's important, right? And right now, our efforts are solely focused on search. That certainly is a dialogue that's happening, but we're focused on search.
And this is a recovery or a rescue?
Oh, this is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
How far down are those ROVs, and can you confirm that some sort of rectangular object has been spotted? There was some sort of report about that overnight.
So, well, a couple things. So the ROVs, each ROV brings different capability. The ROVs that are diving today, what's the depth limit? 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 meters. And some additional ROVs that'll be arriving tomorrow have additional depth capability. With respect to an object, so yesterday one of the aircraft did see an object. I will tell you this: in search and rescue missions, when aircraft are flying continuously, there is stuff out in the ocean that's floating. We went back, we looked at it, it wasn't, we didn't determine it to be debris. We don't think it correlates with the case, and it is not uncommon at all during an active search to see things, and then we go and look at them.
So, Captain, just Clark from BBC News, when were these noises first heard? How long did they persist for? And if I could also ask, do you have any information in terms of food and water that the men might have on board the sub?
Yeah, so several P3 flights have heard the noises as yesterday, and we put assets there. We relocated assets immediately. With respect to food and water, it's my understanding there are some limited rations. I can't tell you exactly how much they have aboard, but they do have some limited rations aboard.
Captain, speaking to the families, how much hope can you give them after hearing those noises?
Listen, I think you need to be careful. We need to have hope, right? But I can't tell you what the noises are. But what I can tell you is, and I think this is the most important point, we're searching where the noises are, and that's all we can do at this point.
So is that your best clue right now about the status of the submersible or those noises? And are the noises continuing now? Have they stopped or they continue?
So I just wanted to, so it was my understanding that the P3 had heard some noises today as well. But so I do want to take just an opportunity to invite Carl to the podium just to talk a little bit about, he has a little bit more expertise in underwater acoustics, maybe just to speak to that in general, because again, there are noises below the surface of the ocean. So I'll just turn it to
Carl, spell your name.
Yes, ARL.
ocean is a very complex place. Obviously, human sounds, nature sounds, and it's very difficult to discern what the source of those noises are at times, but I can tell you that this team has multiple sensors. They're in the area. They're sending data back expeditiously to the best in the world people to analyze that data, and then they're feeding the results of that analyst back to the unified team, and they're making decisions. So Woods Hole is here in an advisory role, but by our expertise, what I see is a very tight operational loop that's making decisions based on data, and nothing is ruled out.
Are the noises continuing? He said he heard the noises this morning. Are they still continuing on a regular basis now?
There have been multiple reports of noises, and every one of those noises is being analyzed, tracked, looked for patterns, and reported.
Can
you describe what the noise sounds like that they're hearing?
Well, you know, the noises, again, very complex in the ocean. You have to be an acoustic analysis, and you have to have context. They're trying to put all the pieces together. The noises have been described as banging noises. But again, they have to put the whole picture together in context, and they have to eliminate potential man-made sources other than the Titan.
Is it possible that a ship in the ocean, is it possible a ship in the ocean, or even some mammals out there, could mimic that kind of sound?
So I can tell you from my experience with acoustics that there are sounds by biologics that sound man-made to the untrained ear, but I can assure you that the people listening to these tapes are trained. There are a lot of vessels in the area, and they each make noise, right? So all of that has to be eliminated, and it's analysis over time. Plus, as the captain said, the team is searching in the right area. So if you continue to do the analysis, look for different patterns, and search in the right area, you're doing the best you possibly can do with the best people on the case.
Captain, who described them as banging noises? There was a deep ocean salvage system, that flyway, that was sent there to a location. Can you tell if it's on site yet, and how it operates, and how long it would take to rescue at depth? Would that take?
Which system?
This flyway?
The system. What's the system that you're talking about?
It's called a flyway deep ocean salvage system.
That's just the hydraulic.
Yeah, so that's right. So that's a piece of equipment. It's a crane piece of equipment. There are a lot of pieces of equipment flowing in through St. John's right now. One thing I did want to mention, I think it's important. Some of the ROV capability that's arriving soon is really great, incredible capability. One thing I want to point out is that French team that's coming in to serve aboard with their equipment aboard a French ship. They bring some state-of-the-art equipment, and so once they get on, we're going to have more assets down to look, and we'll continue to put them where we think the best location is.
Considering how many days passed, are you still optimistic that you're gonna find them?
So, how many days? Did you ask how many days?
Considering how many days passed?
Well, so we have to remain optimistic and hopeful when you're in a search and rescue case. So we're right in the middle of the search and rescue case. So I don't want to get into a discussion about when that would end with respect to this case. What I will tell you, though, I'm happy to explain to you kind of how that process would work. The Coast Guard prosecutes search and rescue cases on a daily basis, and sometimes we don't find what we're looking for, and you have to carefully consider all of the factors, and there are a lot of factors you consider. And then after you consider all of those factors, sometimes you're in a position where you have to make a tough decision. We're not there yet, but if we continue to search, potentially we could be at that point. But again, we're not there yet, and that's a discussion that we will have with the family long before I'm going to discuss that here publicly.
What